support, but if you don't have SiteGround, we can definitely help you out.
Absolutely. Okay, so go live. All right, I'm gonna boost this screen up. We're gonna put us in the background.
Cool.
So hopefully this doesn't show anything that anybody can take advantage of. But maybe I'll probably just block these out. That seems fair. All right, so the one thing that you would want to do is click on new site, and it gives you the option of adding a domain that you would purchase through SiteGround or adding an existing domain. So we'll go through this real fast. When adding a new domain, you're going to go through the common thing if you've ever done it before, where you have to decide what your name is and see if there's a .com version. If there's no .com version, do you recommend any extensions, or do you just think that it's best to just change their name?
Always kind of stick with the .com if it's a business setting. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's because like whenever you're talking to people, they always think .com.
Yep.
Like so if you tell them like, and the thing is they're always focusing on what they need to remember before the .com. That if
Yep.
it's something else, like you saw it with the your Bubble Media, you gave
Yeah.
it to that girl and she sent it to .com instead. Like
Yep.
it's just too common.
Yeah, one day I'll figure out how to get a redirect, but until then, absolutely try to stick with the .com. We talked about it in the previous podcast, but also make sure that whatever name you're choosing is available on all social media platforms.
Yeah.
And if it's not, you're better off just changing the name before you get started. I'm just being like completely honest.
Yeah, and another suggestion is to like consider like if you're a very localized based business, like if you only service a particular area, you might want to consider incorporating that into your URL if it makes sense. Like you don't
Yeah.
want this obnoxiously long URL, but if you could fit in like if I'm trying to think of a good example. Oh, Juniper Catering. So one of my clients, Juniper Catering, they only specifically service Connecticut, so their URL is junipercateringct.com
Hmm.
because you just want people to instantly know. I mean, I'm trying to think of like a situation where someone wouldn't know what CT is. I mean, if you're out of state, maybe not, but like for the most part, everyone in Connecticut is going to go, okay, these people are here for
Yeah.
Connecticut. Like this is where I should spend my money.
Yeah. So try to just make sure that the name makes sense to your business. Try to make sure it's available. And so that would be your new domain. An existing domain is if you already had something. If you went and bought on he who shall not be named GoDaddy.
Use
Uh,
Google domains.
Google domains I actually recommend highly.
Yeah, I feel bad because I told SiteGround support that I would buy like a domain through SiteGround, and then I
Yeah.
just went to Google domains to go buy all my domains because it's like a buck or $2 cheaper.
I think one of my domains is bought through SiteGround,
It sometimes
potentially.
makes it easier. Like
Yeah.
not all hosting companies are the same. Like some hosting companies, just problems arise if you don't have the domain purchased through that hosting company. Like that's why SiteGround's awesome is that it's really no biggie if you have it through somewhere else.
Yep. And if you're not comfortable setting up DNS network settings and changing your MX or
Mm.
anything like that for your Gmail, it's super easy. You can look it up. We'll also have a tutorial on how to do that um, coming up in the future. So stay tuned. But if you choose an existing domain, you will have to point your domain server to your hosting plan by in the DNS settings. Um, Usually, if you went with Google, they have a super intuitive way of doing it. They tell you exactly what to type and how to point your domain, and you just follow the instructions, and then you're good to go. And SiteGround acknowledges that you did it, and you can start installing your WordPress.
Yeah.
For today's example, we're going to be using WordPress. SiteGround offers a temporary domain. This is what I use when I'm building out clients' websites. I'll use my temporary domain, build out the website, and then I'll transfer using FTP or whatever I need to do. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and this is my temporary hosting, which is free, and we're going to continue.
And this is one of the things to keep in mind. Like, SiteGround makes it so easy to start a new website or migrate a website.
Mm-hmm.
Other places, not so easy.
Right. So Tyler, starting a new website versus migrating a website, what do they have to expect?
So migrating a website, you wouldn't be able to like if you already had a Squarespace or a Wix site, like you wouldn't be able to migrate it over. Like this is for if you have an existing like WordPress website. that you're maybe hosting somewhere else and you've heard SiteGround and you're like, okay, let's make the switch over to SiteGround. Like that's when you would consider migrating a website. If like you already have one. In my applications, like I migrate websites if I'm using a site that I've already built as like a template for another one that I'm going to build. I'll just migrate my last built website over to the staging site and make the tweaks there. But for the most part, like 7 times out of 10, it's start a new website.
Yep. So that's what we're going to do today. And then this is the options. I've actually never selected on other. I'd be interested to
Yeah,
look
it's
at
like
it.
Drupal and
Okay.
like all the stuff. You don't need that. WordPress is like the industry standard. And then
So,
like you don't like if you're like considering building a store, you don't have to immediately install WooCommerce. It's just a plugin inside WordPress. So
yeah.
you just only need WordPress to start off.
So we're going to start off with WordPress, but like Tyler said, if you're starting with an e-commerce building site, it might be worth it just to add it in, but you can always add it in later if you need to. So we're going to do WordPress. And then this is where you do an email and a password. And this just lets you into your, actually,
While you're doing that, something I just want to say about e-commerce sites is I've been seeing a lot of Shopify sites, and
mhm.
like in some cases, like if you're a big online realtor, Shopify might work better for some scenarios. But like you get limited in the customization and like possibilities that you can do compared to like WooCommerce and
Yeah.
WordPress.
So SG Site Scanner is not something that you need to opt into. You can
Yeah.
always do it later if you feel
There's
like it's
free plugins.
necessary. Yeah, and we'll be going over some very nice plugins that you can use, which kind of does the similar things. So it's going to be doing its thing behind the scenes, creating your site. It's going to take upwards of 2 minutes. I've never seen it take longer than a few minutes.
Yeah, especially if it's just right off the bat, like a brand new.
Mm-hmm. And then what will happen is once it's finished, it'll go to the main page, and that's where you can start playing with your settings on SiteGround.
This is one of the beautiful things. SiteGround just this past year, 2020, they made it so that they switch everything from cPanel to their SiteGround site tools, and it makes it so much more intuitive. Like cPanel, like pretty much everything that you would get in cPanel is now in site tools, and it's just a much cleaner like user interface. And I love it. Like that's like I actually stopped using one of my SiteGround accounts because I wanted to use the site tools instead of cPanel, so I migrated all my stuff from one account over to a new account because the brand new account had site tools instead of cPanel. It's not something you have to worry about anymore. They switch
Yeah.
everything over, but it's just one of the coolest, well, one of the many cool things about SiteGround.
All right. So we are all set. We have our hosting. The next thing is to either view the site, which if you did that, you would see, I don't think anything would be there.
Yeah, just say
Yeah,
like
nothing here.
just another WordPress site. That's the basic default
Yep.
2021 theme.
Just another WordPress site. My favorite thing recently has been whenever I'm interviewing clients or anything, I like to see if they're using WordPress. And one of the biggest things that they miss, guys, right here, if you can see where my
Yes.
mouse is, they miss
Yes.
this. This is called a site icon,
No, Favicon.
favicon, and it is very crucial if you want to look super official. And it's
I just wrote a
super
blog about
easy.
this. I just published a blog called "What a Professional Web Designer Helps With," and like
Yeah.
one of the things I talk about it is like a professional web designer will always make sure that there's a site favicon, and it'll always make sure that you have meta descriptions because that's
Yes.
like one of my telltale signs if someone built the site like by an amateur or if they built it by a professional.
Yes, 100%. I agree with that. So I'll have a link to Tyler's blog in the bio as well. So if you want to go check that out, that'd be awesome. So that we'll go through this panel. Tyler, you want to walk us through just maybe this site and then your favorite little side icon?
Yeah, so one like when you first install it, I mean, one of the like original like I'm trying to think what's the best place to start. Another thing that I talk about is like making sure things are secure. So one of the first things I do when I install a new site is I go to security and then SSL manager and I install an SSL certificate onto it. And this is like one of the many things about SiteGround that makes them amazing is there's no additional cost for an SSL certificate. And setting one up on your website is as simple as what Matt is doing right now. It's
Yep.
just clicking the domain, it's clicking Let's Encrypt wildcard, and then the other one, Let's Encrypt. I forgot what the other option.
Let's encrypt wildcard, and then premium wildcard.
Yeah, so I mean, one of them is just so that way it covers all the subdomains just off the bat, but it's like I don't have that capability on my site, so all you do is just do one single SSL certificate for each subdomain, and that's
Hmm.
only something you have to worry about if you have a lot of subdomains, which most people don't.
And we'll
But
go over subdomains as well.
this is this is just so that way you get that thing on the site that says it's secure, and
Yeah,
because like
let's
no
show an
one,
example. Let's go to,
even Facebook, I mean, almost every
yeah,
major website you
um,
go to nowadays
let's go
is
to Etsy.
secure.
So do you see this right here?
Yeah,
That
a
is
nice little padlock.
that's an SSL encryption, and that makes it so that your site is secure. Oh, I could have just pointed at SiteGrounds.
Yeah. If you I don't know since we're installing one right now, but when we first went to the site just to see the basic WordPress thing, you would see it says not secure at the top.
I think we
Um,
can still. Oh.
oh, it just got installed.
All right. So then, what do you want to do after this? Because we have to enforce it.
Yep. So you just want to set it so that HTTPS is enforced. So again, SiteGround, super simple. You just click it. And what that
There it
means is like if
is.
you have anything HTTP linking to it, it automatically just sets it as HTTPS to make sure it's secure. And that's and then another one of the first things I do, like let's say you built this site, your domain was hosted to it. You won't be able to do it now because we're using a temporary domain, but you could get email. So a lot of people, like a lot of hosting companies don't include email in their cost for it.
Hmm.
So SiteGround, you get free email like domains incorporated when you like are hosted on SiteGround. So like this again, super simple way to set up a email account that looks professional. So
Yep.
it'd be your name at yourdomain.com rather than like at Gmail or something like that.
Yep.
And generally like that's one of the first things I would do when installing a site.
You eventually will. We're not going to be able to do it on this, but we'll make a fake website and we'll show you the domain settings in another podcast. But today we're just going to get you set up as if you were creating your own SiteGround domain and SiteGround WordPress website. So after you do the HTTP enforce, you can go to this option right here, WordPress install and manage, and then you can hit this log into admin panel, and it'll open up your WordPress starter. I don't know about you, but I usually exit. Do you usually go through this?
It's helpful for someone who has no idea what they're doing, but for
Okay.
us we don't need this stuff.
So,
This is so I mean this is kind of good to walk through it if someone's going to do it. So
right.
these are site themes, and site themes are just like if you don't know what you're doing, like if you have no idea how to build a site on WordPress, a theme is probably a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
But like you get contained to a box by using themes. I mean, Matt and I build our sites through Elementor, so we create our own themes essentially. Like we don't utilize anything that's like this. There's some themes specifically for Elementor. Like there's a lot of things you can do with WordPress. Like there's so much to it because it's open source. So there's just so much like capabilities that you have that best fit your needs. But for the most part, I just stick with like the standard theme, or I use Elementor's Hello theme, which is a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So that's typically what I do. And then here it's like saying like here's some plugins that you can use on your site. Like sure, forms are good. Like if you have no like again, like if you have no idea what you're doing, like all
Yeah,
these
you
probably
should.
sound good to you. The only thing I say is like you don't want too many plugins.
Yeah.
Because the one downside to WordPress is that plugins have the potential to cause issues on your site if they're not updated, or like there's a new update that comes out for WordPress and they haven't like released a patch yet and things like that. So if you can reduce the amount of plugins that you're using, like for example, Elementor would solve Jetpack, contact form, maps, and gallery. You wouldn't
Yep.
need any of those plugins. You would just need that. So again, but this is good if you like need help. I mean, like right there, they're offering Yoast SEO, like great one. Like that's a
Yep.
great SEO plugin. We used that for years, but now we use Rank Math. So,
And
I
then
mean, if
HubSpot as well for managing your contacts.
yeah, if you don't have a CRM, HubSpot integrates perfectly with your website. So, for example, anybody that I'm tracking my CRM, I can see how long they've spent on my site. I can see like what pages they viewed. If they submit a form, it automatically gets sent over to HubSpot. Like it makes things, it integrates everything to one another.
And then, like we said, we'll go over in this next step what our traditional first installs are. I think Tyler and I agree on the first one, which is the basis of what we usually use.